My name's Emma and I am a junior doctor working in Australia, and I thought it would be pretty funny to see if AI or the robots or whatever next is going to steal my job. Sometimes life as a junior doctor can feel very administrative. You can often feel like you have spent all of this time in university and in med school to basically be a secretary for the team. You're writing notes, you're actioning plans, you're writing discharges, you're spending a lot of time on a computer writing what feels like the same thing over and over again instead of interacting with patients. And that's just the reality of the job. It's an important part of the job. But sometimes you wonder, do I have to be doing this, or can someone do this better? And with the rise of Chat GPT and AI and the conversations that AI is going to take over jobs like radiology and basically it's coming for all of us, I just thought it would be funny to see if AI could do my job. The other day I typed into Chat GPT just a prompt that I have personally been told, like, oh, go discharge Mrs. X. And I wanted to see how well it would do and how well it would compare to my own and maybe give some feedback. And I honestly didn't expect it to be as good as it was. I think I took a little clip of my reaction. At that point I was like, oh no, I've got to make a video of this. I've got to see how AI would do walking through a day in the life of a junior doctor, and hopefully give you a little bit of glimpse to what we do in a day and why it does feel like a lot of the time we're writing and typing and doing all of these more administrative things in between using our doctor brains, and the typing and things uses the medical school education and the doctor brains and all those things. I'm really trying to validate myself. But anyways, let's just jump into it and we will see how we go. So, life as a junior doctor, you start your day and you come into the hospital. We are often there early, there before rounds start, and we start collecting our patient list from the day, the night before, if anything has changed. People may have gone home in the evening when we weren't there, or people may have been added to our list if we were on take. I don't think it's going to be able to generate a patient list. Obviously, it would have to be connected properly into the hospital system to do that. But I do wonder, we will take the example of general surgery. Just to see what that... Okay, it actually did that, and I appreciate that it actually has a note that this is a hypothetical list for general surgeon, so this is generic, and it's actually modeled what we would do pretty well. We would include patient, an identifier, their age, what they came in for, what's been done. Probably would also include some recent labs, so like if we're tracking someone's sodium or potassium or their infection markers, that kind of thing. And personally, I like to see mine landscape. But honestly, this has done it well, and it's also pretty accurate. Yeah, okay, wow. So I guess we could infer from that, in a way, you could already have, and hospitals probably already have set up automations to replace me printing off the patient list. It wouldn't be that hard. It would just cross some information and privacy boundaries. But all right, there's one task done. After we get the list, then we troll through and get the new results and comb through different changes, add in results from scans patients had overnight, or hear any handover from another doctor if patients had reviews or like alert calls overnight. Then we go on the round. Now the round usually is what we call a progress note, so you're writing a progress note for the patient. The patient's already known to the surgeon whether they came in overnight or they've been here for a few days and they're recovering. Oh, that's really interesting. Okay, so they have, or in my experience, this is sort of taking either a more American, but sometimes also a more nursing structure to a progress note. And there's nothing wrong with that. We just weren't taught this sort of SOAP method, but it's not a bad way to communicate. It's just one way to do so. But yeah, your progress note's going to start with the patient's name, date, what day post-op they are, or another line, and what they had. It will also include who was present on the round, so they've missed that. So medical legally, they don't know who was there other than the person who wrote the note. And not even just medical legally, for billing. The doctors often want their name on the note so that they can say they saw that patient that day. And most people would argue, especially surgical rounds, you're not going to get all of this out. And it's really hard for someone else to read and get the key information out. So you should have bullet points or really emphasis on what is important, because this is telling a really well done story, like pain decreasing, less discomfort, ambulating without assistance. These are all important things to know, but it's really hard to tease that out if you were coming and consulting on the patient and just wanted to sort of get through things, especially things like objective signs. Obviously it's not giving the numbers that would be there, but we would have to say at time of review, blood pressure was this, heart rate was this, and that kind of thing. Or again, if you're on a really busy surgical round, you might just write between the flags or within normal limits, so they're not too wrong there. No erythema, edema, you can see that it's American spelling. Drainage, yep, soft, non-tender. Yeah, so they've added an assessment instead of an impression, same thing. And then they've got a plan, which again is just more wordy because this computer can spit it out faster than I can handwriting or typing. And they've even included a safety net. Okay, so probably could write a progress note. Probably would have to put in more information, which I'm wondering if it would actually be any quicker, but I wonder if you could say, like, if I took the time to type out things like the vital signs, things like the actual assessments, because obviously we can't have it just automatically generated and assume that the abdomen is soft, non-tender, or that the wound is non-erythematous, although people have been caught doing that before. You'd have to input the information anyways, so I don't know that that would actually make any faster. In essence, we are, as juniors, Chat GPT, because we're the ones who are typing it, and probably have templates set up already to get some of this stuff typed faster, but it will change for every patient, so this is just quite generic, but it is kind of funny. After we go through and we do the round, then we start actioning jobs, and this is one way in which, for now, computers can't replace us, because I want to see Chat GPT through my laptop do a cannula. That is until the robots come through. But for now, and for probably my generation of doctors, junior doctors, I still have to do the tasks like catheters and cannulas and reviewing patients. There's something that it can't do. I can keep my job as a cannula monkey. And then during the day, sometimes, or now that I'm working in ED, we often write an admission note. And as a junior, sometimes you will go and start an admission and your reg will meet you, but it's ultimately sort of someone else's decision on bringing this patient in, depending on where you train. But you might go and tag along to write the admission note. The admission note is slightly different from a progress note in that it's when you're doing your first big assessment of an undifferentiated patient. So you need to get as much information as you can from this patient as to what the issue is that's brought them to hospital and how sick they are and their symptoms, as well as their background health, so that you know what's going on and you can send them down a treatment pathway. Where a progress note is they're on progress for that treatment pathway. And obviously, if things change while they're progressing, you can take a step back, review the admission note, or revisit the history and get more information. But an admission note is really where you start. It's why when you go to ED, you get a million people asking you the same thing over and over again. It's because the nurse has to know, then the doctor has to know that's in ED, then the doctor calls the medical specialist or the surgeon and asks them, and then they come down and ask for themselves. It's very annoying. But those are admission notes. So I'm going to ask it, write an admission note for a man who has come to the hospital with intermittent abdominal pain. This is so entertaining. It's even given it a past medical history, which is pretty relevant. Okay, let's see. So again, it would probably just be bullet point, but it's organized in a good way. And then it settles, can't find any triggers. So yeah, that's, let me just see. Changes to bowel habits, vomiting, or weight loss or stool. So it's doing a really quick check, especially with that weight loss, for any B symptoms that we're wondering about. It's cycle pain, onset, better. It goes through Socrates. That's really funny. Medical history, which is all very relevant to abdominal pain, so well done, Chat GPT. But we do want to know more. We want to know if he has any cardiac or respiratory history as well, clearing him for surgery if he needs it. Need to know any allergies and any medications that he's currently on. Oh, it's got the medications there. Doesn't have the doses though. Social history, non-smoker, and alcohol. Okay, yep. Married. Oh, and even gets his job. It's nice to know your patient, know what they're doing. And activity. So this might be something specific because I work in a rural hospital, but we do like to know where the patient is, if they live locally, if they've got supports locally, if it's just them and their partner at home, if there's anybody else at home, because that does help us decide. Sometimes with admission, sometimes patients will get admitted because we think their surgery will be in a couple days, but we know that they're coming from really far away. We want to keep an eye on them, essentially, to make sure they don't get worse. Sometimes patients who live around the corner from the hospital and have, young, like their kids or young adults or adults who can take care of them, then it just changes your planning sometimes when facing bed block and commutes to hospital and things. Family history. Well done. Gives a physical exam, including the obs. Thank you for translating the Fahrenheit to Celsius. What are his oxygen saturations? General, yep, and then the abdomen specifically. So one thing that usually happens on an admission note, especially in ED, is even if someone comes in with abdominal pain, we're going to look at their heart and their chest and all those other things too, or at least listen to them. So should be noted. But that being said, some registrars might sort of forget that there's anything other than the tummy. Plan. Yeah, you get an imaging picture, get some tests done, making sure we don't have anything cardiac masking itself as abdominal pain. Amazing. And specifically because it's the abdominal pain, we're worried about NSAID use in case it's GORD or an ulcer. Well done. And of course, if we're going to call surgeons, we're going to keep the patient nil by mouth, just in case. And then it gives an impression. Well done differentials. The only thing I guess you could say is with that pancreatitis, we could also throw in some more labs to help differentiate if it's pancreatitis or not. That would be a lipase level. Yeah, so again, because this is more giving the entire story rather than bullet points and summarized, it's actually done a pretty thorough admission. I won't have a job in a little while. Sometimes as a JMO, a lot of what we're also doing is spending time on the phone calling other people. We see the patient in the morning and we think, oh, they're going to need this type of consult. So if it's gen surg, you're often consulting medics to make sure that you're managing the patient's medical history properly. You know, someone might come in with an issue, but then they have a fall and they break their wrist while they're in hospital, and you've got to consult the orthopedics team while they're here. Or, you know, you want to get physio involved to make sure that the patient's mobilizing safely, or to help just assess their mobility, speech pathology, diet, dietitians. It's a whole bunch of different teams working all together. And given that this has been quite sort of conversational, I'm curious to see if this would like translate into a good requesting a consult or a handover of a patient. This is so funny. I love the like safety netting it has. Cannot directly schedule. However, I can provide you guidance on how to request for viewing. I think we could probably phrase this differently to try to give it a better idea. Again, not professional medical advice, that is true. So let's see. Admitted to the hospital after falling out of left hand. They've been experiencing significant pain and swelling. Patient reports limited mobility, difficult performing. Mentioned tenderness, localized pain. X-ray reveals findings. Limited range of motion. That's so funny. Yeah. So honestly, depending on the training you have, different ways to call consults are different. I wonder if it knows the acronym I was taught of. Let's see here. I was taught ISPAR. No way, no way, no way. Hi, this is Emma from Gen Surg, calling for an orthopedic review patient, contacting you regarding patient name who had fall earlier today, currently on this ward, significant pain, swelling, X-ray revealing consistent fracture, no significant medical history, otherwise. And it's reminding us to put in specific context. So honestly, if you put in the context, that's not a bad ISPAR. And the camera died. So I hope this is roughly in the same place. So yeah, as long as you put in your patient's context and actually treated this properly, that's not actually a bad structure to an ISPAR, and it includes a relative enough amount of information for the team. I think it would probably depend on if you're calling like a medical team versus a surgical team, but that's actually kind of scary and hilarious how well it did that, and like that it can do the difference between a SOAP and an ISPAR. My mind's just a little bit blown. So I'm trying to think of what else a JMO does. Obviously, there's a lot of things that Chat GPT is not going to be able to do, mostly, or like AI is not going to be able to do, mostly because I'm not able to put in all of the context. And I think the amount of time it would take a doctor to put in the context so that this spits out answers, you might as well just be doing the job yourself. But it is kind of funny how much of it is so standardized for patient safety that AI could do it. The one thing I think it's going to struggle with might be talking to family members. So often as a junior, because we're the ones on the ward, depending on the severity of the conversation, we might be having it with the family members. So we'll see how it does with that. Understandably, a little robotic. And it's obviously written like a letter, so that's like instead of calling someone, where normally, yeah, we would touch on all of these things, saying like initially lead the conversation with that they're doing well, and that what they've come in with has resolved or has been addressed, what we're doing and how they're going, and then sort of provide some support to the family member and to just updates in general and answer their questions. And obviously, like, we can't put in the questions for this to answer. Now, the last step in a JMO health journey with a patient is writing the discharge summary. And that is what started all of this. Is I actually typed it. I was like, nah, I wonder if they could do a discharge summary. Because so much of discharge summaries, especially now that I'm working in ED, there's a lot of preamble or structure that feels like you're doing the same thing over and over again, but you're not. You are taking that patient into context, but there's usually the beginning of, dear so-and-so, thank you for your ongoing care of Mr. So-and-so, birth date, who presented to hospital with blank. Investigations, impression, exams, like you put in a lot of the same info, including that like safety netting, which is usually specific signs and symptoms for that patient's presentation that we'd be worried about. So say we're sending you home because you have a bit of an upper respiratory tract infection. If you get acutely breathless, we want you to come back. But we always include sort of just our door is always open. If you're unwell, return to hospital. So there are certain bits that are sort of always there, and I thought, I wonder if someone could, like a computer could do this for me. And that's how I ended up with some of these discharge summaries, which actually, when I did them, when I asked them to do it, I've got one here, patient who was admitted for pneumonia. It includes the information, the diagnosis, and even tells you to be specific. Was it community acquired or hospital acquired? Because the treatment is different. Give a story of the clinical course, so how the patient progressed, because not all patients go directly better. Some of them get worse and then they get better, or some things happen, like they have a fall in hospital and things change. What treatment was given, how we intervened, any extra consultations, and their discharge plan. And this is what blew my mind, is it includes medications upon discharge and changes to medications. And I know some junior doctors forget to do that sometimes. This is honestly a structure that JMO should stick to and that we've been taught to stick to, and it's part of the reason why it can feel so repetitive, is because we're always doing the same structure. But obviously for every patient it's different, and we take that into account. And so then the pneumonia thing blew my mind. So I was like, okay, let's do another one. Someone who's received a surgery. Again, so good. Even talks about having a PCA, which not every cholecystectomy is going to have a PCA afterwards, but hey, could do. Mentioning that there were no infections or complications. And that sort of preamble of, oh, on this date the patient was stable and had resolved, and so they have been discharged to the care of blank is there. And medications, which includes like analgesia, antibiotics, along with dosage and frequency. So it's even giving you the structure. It understands what we need to include. And then, you know, the recommendations or the plan that you've been discharged with would include the medications, reintroduction to solids and food, lifting, how to look for signs of infection, and then what is your follow-up, which normally would give the date and time. And yeah, it honestly blows my mind. But yeah. So in conclusion, can Chat GPT be a junior doctor? Probably not. Is automation coming for our jobs? Probably not. Are there ways that we can use this to learn and to automate things in our jobs? Probably. Obviously respecting privacy and like information and health care information. But I think as a med student, some of this language is actually pretty helpful. The structure that is provided is not too bad. And sometimes you can't figure out how to phrase something, and it's actually prompted a good amount of information to be included. You just have to use the med school education and the years of experience to put it into proper clinical context and never put in real patient information to this database. But if you're just saying, request an orthopedic consult, it might remind you to ask things that you would forget, or to do stuff before the consult that you might forget. And as more and more systems use electronic medical records, there are automations already built in, so people will often have templates. So like I have, or I had as a final year med student, a cannula care plan template note. So I just would type in cannula, and it would come up with cannula inserted at, and then I would fill in date and time. It would say by me in my role. It would say site, and I would type in the place. But it takes out those repetitive bits, the headings, the things that you need to include, so you're not doubling up every time you do that, and that makes you more efficient. Other templates people use are sort of for your notes, like your ward notes and your progress notes, and sometimes it can prompt you to do things or to look at information that sometimes might slip through the cracks. So like if you include every time you write a note or every time you open your template, alcohol and smoking, you're never going to forget to ask those questions, which sometimes just happens when we get distracted or someone pulls us away from a job, we've got to go back to it. So there's already these automations that people are including in their everyday life on the wards, and so much of what we do is on computers and repetitive, and this doesn't do a bad job, which is kind of scary. So I think I still have a job, but I do think this does my job pretty well, which is terrifying. And obviously, moving forward, disclaimer, I will still be handwriting all of my notes. I work at a hospital where we handwrite them anyway, so this doesn't do anything for me. But yeah, Chat GPT doesn't make too bad of a junior doctor, at least on the admin side of things. Not sure how it would go building patient rapport or actually examining a patient, but hey. And with that, I'll say I will see you in the next one. Don't forget to subscribe. I make content and vlogs about being a junior doctor, and I have previous content and vlogs all about my journey to and my journey through med school, being an international student studying in Australia, and now being a slightly tired, burnt out junior doctor working here in Australia. This was a lot of fun, and maybe you'll see more AI videos or Chat GPT does my job videos as we adventure further. But I'm probably gonna go lounge on my couch and watch some TikToks because this felt a little bit too much like work, and it's my day off. So I will see you in the next one.